Good evening. Welcome to Greenkill Gallery and CAPS live stream. My name is Jim Eve. I'm the host of Calling All Poets and the founder. And we're going to just get right into the poetry right about now. I'm going to introduce Mike Jakovic, who's my longtime partner and friend and extraordinary poet. His latest collection, Moon Cussers, Luchador Press 2022 is out. Recent collections include American Mental, Luchador Press 2019, Blue Fan Whirring, Narala Press 2018. He's the president of Calling All Poets, and and I'm his. I'm the guy behind the curtain. And here he is, Mike Jakovic.
Man, oh man, oh man, that's a surprise seeing Jim here. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to be reading from a new manuscript that's under consideration by my publisher, Lucador Press, and it's called Buckshot Reckoning, and I'm going to be reading poems from that this evening. And this is called 3 Floors Up, The Girl in the Window. 3 floors up and 2 men back, a Bronx girl born to break the rules hearkens as angels bicker about the city, its predicates, preludes, search and seizure. Above streets slick with derelict rainbows, their discourse turns to the girl in the window. Abstract, concrete. There are no rewards around any corner, one says to the other, a feather falling finally to the curb. His colleague, unusually fraught for a heavenly being, concurs. Sometimes the main mode of transportation is the boat in the storm, he says. As above the avenue's bleak terrain, the sun casts doubt on the high-rise. The girl in the window, 3 floors up, answers the phone. Skyscraper. I was building a skyscraper when I ran out of sky, and the green asteroid, a timely blend of blue and green, slashed the veil of atmosphere, betraying worlds long imagined. Rummy Blinks and Gravel Duck would never be the downtown comedy legends they sought to be because they stayed plush dealing dust and doing favors for Tody Morocco, a South Side pimp who ran his 10 blocks with a gunner's gaze. I wouldn't fuck your sister for those 2, he said, without haste and a Bezedrine bray. But they get the job done, so you can't fuck them for that. Rummy Blinks and Gravel Duck were a seedy thesis to pair this poem around, but, like the heated city itself, a thesis just the same, of drift and wreckage, wreckage and grift. Clock of things. No lichen on my pizza, please, but she insists like New York girls do when they know they're right, and you're just a doofus staring at. Well, they know, you know, they know what you're staring at, and they're going to have their way no matter the day of the week or the month of the minute in the larger clock of things that chimes the hours of the avalanche that overwhelms even we who once outpaced the curve. This next piece was supposed to be a, I don't write too many romantic poems, and this was supposed to be one of them. Emily and I were in the red light district in Amsterdam a few months back, and it was raining, and it was cozy and cuddly, and we're sitting in a pub out on the street, having a drink, and I was like, hey, this is kind of neat. Let me write something while I can, And all of a sudden, her phone rang. My cousin was watching our house, and she had some questions to ask Emily. And while Emily was talking to my cousin, my phone beeped, and it was a friend of ours from Albany, and he was telling me about a poet friend of ours who had been missing for 6 months. And this poem tells the rest of the story. And this is called Blood Street. It was raining on the red light on Bloodstrot when I heard they found your remains 3,500 miles away in the woods in Massachusetts. We had only met twice, once during a radio interview for my book, which was new at the time, but not since. You liked my haiku, and I thanked you for that. Now they found your remains 3,500 miles from back there, and it just does not seem right. Perhaps, like so much, there should have been more refuge or shelter. And maybe the rain on the red lights will wash it all away, but I doubt things like forgiveness and mercy at times like these. One of the things you had to do on our trip to South Africa was take these malaria pills. And one of the side effects was wild, unexplained dreams. This is one of them. And it's called Krakenstag. In Dream 79, my idiot son balances an empty Super 8 movie reels in a box on his head while snapping plastic hangers in two and stacking them in neat little piles. Krakenstag, 24/7. It was maddening, truly, and I had no way to stop him. All day long on into the night, I'd yell, I'd plead, I'd seek professional counsel, but to no avail. Krakenstag, home, away, relentless. Neat little piles about 6, maybe 8 inches high. Then he'd knock them all down again and start again. Krakenstag, 24/7. I don't even know how the world hung up its clothes. Frost's granddaughter convinced me of my brilliance as she held me between her legs like I was the last poet in Kingston. We were young, so sex closed the deal. Rock that girl and you were the next big thing in the land of letters. Bite her neck and she read your words with worship. Hell, I could do that. It was junior year and I had spunk aplenty. My tongue between her cleavage, her lips on my belly, our fingers tracing sweat. I had a way with alliteration that was totally American, she said. My hands on her feverish ass, foraging for her fulcrum, breathing warm along her panty line, their color that of open sky. She has taps on her shoes and a tube for later, but that shouldn't deter you from getting to know her dress, her sex, her titular seam. She won't give you a yes or a no about the tube, but she has never been keen on annotation. Besides, that's her kick for later. But she did get the taps from an Italian down the street a few years back when such things were in fashion, and she flirted with the dashing cameraman who took this picture of her in her prime. Some of these poems are travel poems, and this is one of them. We were out in New Mexico about a year or so ago, and this is called Blue Candle. Here in the heart of Maricopa County, the girl who helped thunder had nothing really to do with the rain. She was just a girl, pronoun, verb, standing in the shadow of the cross and lit a blue candle amid the high mountains. Who knew love's rhombus proved proverb and vowel? A girl of infinite clouds who had nothing at all to do with the rain. I still am a candidate, but I was a candidate last year and lost for town council down in Plattekill. And let me tell you, when you go knocking door to door, there's some weird shit you come across. And this is a poem about one of the weirder parts. And this is called Broken Old House. Just down the road, not far from here, a fentanyl coven of pale crepe vampires breed in the broken old house they split into 4 apartments. Rat holes, certainly, but it's like that here. Laced with warheads, their eyes in free fall, their hair black ash. They torment 2 rooms and half a bath, greet the christened off the bus, await the gunshots sure to come. Cold stone quarries, the galleries of Golgotha where curio hounds exalt the moment, rummage their catalog sins. I am no longer confident enough to ask directions to the men's room. I just go where I am and hope for a mop. The color of genius is the pallor of paste. Oatmeal Venus, the moon is full. Look no less upon these eyes as one would roadkill, the flattened meat of discursive lust, the twisted thrust of fur and bone, my initials carved in the tree. This is called Guernica, and I'm sure it doesn't need any explanation. She came from a time of montage and melee, mishap and magic, a time when women were favored, not imprisoned by men who conflate freedom with virtue and vengeance. She came from a time when the music of the night was a one-hit wonder 8 days a week, not the angry drone of these lesser days when the ugly no one expected held the magi captive. She came from a time before this joyless period of howl and wolf and hunting, the staggering ring of soldiers marching, the scream of mother's broken sword. Air-colored blocks of time melt the cyanide in my glass. Civil War chic is hot again. No one respects the hometown prophet, not even the girls who dated him. Cocktail murmurs scour the bones, the roar of colonels demand men die. Maggie's piano holds no song. Anybody who has a lawn or even a semi-lawn knows what it's like to rake leaves. And you reach a certain age where it's like, do I really have to rake these effing things again? Again? 3 times this month? And this is called 60-something. Really? Who's to blame me if, after 60 years of raking leaves, burning leaves, dragging leaves, bagging leaves, mulching leaves, blowing leaves, I leave them where they fall this year and promise to reciprocate when that unknown hour arrives and my graceless fall litters the yard? In the second scene of the third act, when all hell breaks loose and all the lights are green on 3rd Avenue and nowhere else is the clamor more effusive, the harmony more rent than here at the finish line, where myths and gods convene to bicker. With leftover pangs of contentment, we craft these fictions barely scratching the odd surface of our old tectonics. The least it becomes possible, and all the rest, a pipe dream. And a couple more. And this is called Tinkerlets 2.0. I'm so prone to forgery, you might think I actually wrote this poem, but I didn't. It rolled in on a fog of sleeplessness from a room with a spurious past. Beset, I dressed and came to you, my blueprint in need of revision. You know, you reach a certain age and this friend has that and that friend has this and this piece has to come out and that piece has to come out. And this is called Piece by Piece by Piece. Perhaps we're meant to leave this place piece by piece by piece. Lymph node, tissue, parts diminished, flaws exposed, piece by piece by piece, perfecting daily the coffin pose the home crowd sees, all gussied up and gone elsewhere by the time the wake concludes. It's called Heaven's Flowers. The lengthening silence of festive days stirs not heaven's flowers. Quiet amongst themselves, they bar no excess, claim no junction, spray yon fields with mossy wood, musky blooming apple tree, tannins of peace, relief and veil, the eucalyptus day. Raphael Kosek published a book about a year or two ago called American Mythology, and I can't remember exactly the name of the poem, but one of the lines in this poem, in her poem, just stuck in my brain. And so it's the opening thing to this. And this poem is called Consensus Omenum. And madness, after all, is a haven of sorts not far from heaven. Raphael Kosek. Poets ache in the strangest places, but we all agree that scripting madly in huts of our own illustration is the only way to savor the fret and sprawl of our furious movements away from absolution. Both now and in motion, I see myself before myself an arbiter of the bench, assessing the consequence of outcome. The people of interest who have lost said virtue, but somehow always have the last word, who somehow always accrue more sadness than others, and, bidden or not, steal into the stories we tell ourselves to drag ourselves through these days of errant demand. There's a few poets in the room, and I know there's a few online listening. You all have a bunch of acceptances an arm long, and we have a bunch of rejections 75 miles long. And this is called Rejection 465. I have a hunch this one's going to get away from me, as they often do, which you'd know if you'd even bothered to read any or all of the Virgin editions I stapled myself. One of which I recently rescued from a book burning. Yeah, a fucking book burning. Not too damn far from here. All right, a couple more. It's called Seducing Vivaldi. Seducing Vivaldi was easier than it seemed, she said, as if the Red Priest hadn't been dead for so many years. He may have been one of the world's greatest composers, he said, speaking from experience, but he went down easy, like all men do. These are going to be my last two. And this is called Mitigation. This poem in need of mitigation may hold your interest for a while, but, my dear cranky peers, the truth is, alerting you to urgency has worn me out. Plugged in and captive to the kabuki, the skirmish to balance, binder to pigment, poem to prayer. Do we make history or endure it? Who the fuck knows? Just give me the provenance and let me decide heads or tails before the coast erodes, before microbes rewrite our sacred texts. And this is actually a true story, except that Kurt Vonnegut didn't appear to me. He appeared in my head, but he didn't appear to me in person. I had actually gone up to the fire tower in Mohonk, and this one person was yelling parking directions from up on top of the fire tower to this guy in the parking lot. And it just seemed like the most absurdist thing to me in the world. And this is called, and that's when Kurt showed up. And this is called My Meeting with Vonnegut. There's an extremely bald guy barking parking directions from the fire tower where I'm trying to call upon a peaceful land. But I can't help thinking that I am either going to push this guy over the rail or jump it and park the car myself. You sow a sad intelligence, Kurt said, chronicling the inevitable. Here we are, trapped in the amber of the moment, and you missed it. His unfiltered lit, his eyes ignited. Thank you, everybody.
Nice read. So, the next featured poet up is Tom Romeo. Tom Romeo has been writing and performing his poetry and stories for nearly 30 years. So far, no one has tried to stop him. He takes that as a good sign. Originally from Long Island, he moved to Kingston, New York in 2014 and has performed at several venues in the Hudson Valley. His work can be found in 3 chapbooks: Remember, Demented Love, and OMG. A collection of videos of his performances can be found at www.whereforearts.com. Tom Romeo.
It's been an interesting few months for me. So I've sort of brought this performance in half. January 7th, I turned 70. When that little 6 went to the 7, I realized I could no longer not think of myself as a person of a certain age. Once upon a time, we thought we had time as if time could be had. We thought we could pass the time, waste our time, buy some time, save our time, take our time, that there was plenty of it. Well, time's up. Scene from an all-night diner. Through twin glass doors, past the counter with vinyl seats that spin on pedestals of chrome, past the mirrored case of slowly rotating cakes, they sit at the same booth at which they've sat across from each other for years, eating the same dinner. The one they always pick from the stained menu with pictures of meals that never seem to match what's brought from the kitchen. 2 meatloaf specials, 2 iced teas for dinner, 1 rice pudding, 1 chocolate, dessert to go, to enjoy later. A familiar tableau, a lover's ritual repeated devoutly since the day they met so long ago, when they'd moan yes, yes, and then yes to knowing looks across a sweat-stained mattress. Now, after years of marriage and children come and gone, after heart attack and stroke, tonight it's no, 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 he yells, no to a blank stare across the table. She picks at the meal on her plate with her fingers, then brings a handful of mashed potatoes to her mouth. He knocks it from her hand, wipes her hand clean, and gives her a fork. Use a fork, he says, a fork! Then remembers, changes mood, softens. He takes her hand. Remember, he asks. He reaches his fork across the table, offers a tiny morsel from his plate. Remember? He sighs, I love you. I love you. He says, I love you to the blank stare. It goes on like this all through dinner, a frustrating present colliding with a yearned-for past over and over. They eat. They finish. She stares at the table. They wait for dessert. He watches her carefully at first. He gets impatient, then turns for a second. He turns just for a second to look for the waitress. Just for a second or two. A second or two wouldn't hurt. He's distracted by a young couple at the booth next to a window. They're holding hands. They're holding a conversation. The woman feeds her partner, who reacts with exaggerated ecstasy. They both laugh, all without breaking their gaze. When he turns back, she's gone. He panics. For a moment, he's lost her. It was just a second or two, wasn't it? Where did she go, he asks. The people in the next booth point. He follows the direction of their fingers to the carousel of cakes, where she stares transfixed by the motion of baked goods. He sighs. He laughs. He shrugs. I guess it's time to go, he says. He reaches in his pocket and removes exact change, which he drops between the plates. Don't move, he yells as he negotiates his way past booths and tables to join her. Stay put. Their waitress rushes to them, carrying dessert in 2 small brown bags. He takes them, shows them to her, and says, "For later," he says, "to enjoy later." They'd hold hands. One 28-ounce can of Tuderosa crushed tomatoes, one 6-ounce can of Contadina tomato paste, 2 boxes of Ronzoni No. 8 spaghetti, one 8-ounce container of Locatelli grated Pecorino Romano cheese, 5 packages of Hungry Man Salisbury steak, frozen dinners, 1 head iceberg lettuce, 1 medium-sized bottle of Berlioz olive oil, 1 medium-sized bottle of vinegar. The brand doesn't matter. 1 8-pack of Charmin toilet paper, the one with the red bears. 1 12-packet box of Carnation Instead breakfast. That's what the aide called it. Instead breakfast, instead of instant breakfast. Their weekday companion, maid, cook, watcher with the missing front teeth, who called her mom, who called herself mom's other daughter, called it instead breakfast, which made sense, I guess. And it made me laugh. On Sundays, I do the shopping, then wash the bathroom, toilet, and sink with Clorox wipes. I'd wash both the bathroom and kitchen with lemon-scented Clorox wipes. I'd wash the floors on my hands and knees and vacuum the hall and bathroom and living room while he watched World War II movies and golf on TV with the volume at max because he would sometimes forget to put in his hearing aids. She'd watch him watch World War II movies and golf and didn't seem to care about the volume or cared more about him than the volume. She'd stare at him and smile. The stroke made it difficult to find words, so she remained silent much of the time, but he didn't seem to care about her silence or cared more about her than the silence, about the things she couldn't say that he most likely couldn't hear. He'd just smile back and reach his hand across the end table placed in the middle between their 2 recliners. He'd reach across the once end but now middle table, and even if she didn't notice, even if blocked by the lamp or a glass of water or plastic boxes that held their pills in day-imprinted compartments, Sun Mun Tu Wed Thur Fry Sat, they'd hold hands. Oh, thank you. Hide and seek. Making an impression in the mattress deeper than he, she sits next to her father and remembers strength, enough to lift her gently out of the car after a long drive and carry her safely to bed while she pretended to sleep, never letting on that he knew she was awake. It was a game they played, pretending not to know. Yesterday was a good day. He remembered her name, noticed the shell dangling from the gold chain around her neck, a present for her 10th birthday. They spoke of playing hide and seek in the dunes through midwinter winds that sandblasted their faces down to raw smiles. Today she's a stranger again. He can't even bear the weight of his right hand as she places it in her left, so she carries the weight. Lifts hands to lips, tries to kiss memories through fingertips. "Who are you?" he screams, attempts to pull his hand away, seeks some spark of recognition, hides his face in the pillow. "It's me, Dad," she answers playfully, still holding on to his hand. "It's me," she repeats, and then lets go. Keys and glasses. I must be losing it. I know I'm forgetting something, like my keys, like my glasses. I know we left it somewhere. I put it somewhere where I wouldn't forget, like you used to do as far as I can remember. And I remember you sitting in your recliner, but no, 2 recliners next to each other in the garage. No, in the apartment he built for you next to his garage near the end. I remember, "Are the kids coming?" you'd ask. And it didn't bring them enough. Only for holidays or a rare visit when they weren't busy or with their mother, but you kept smiling and asking, "Are the kids coming?" And I'd say, "No, not today," and then go clean the bathroom. But that's not what I was thinking about. Not that. I was thinking about losing something, like my keys, like my glasses, about forgetting something, like you forgot after the stroke, You, not him. He kept asking about the kids. You, after the stroke, you couldn't find words. You'd struggle, and I'd let you. You'd struggle to find them, and sometimes you wouldn't. Sometimes you wouldn't find them, the words, and when you couldn't find the words, you'd smile and give a dissonant wave, a dismissive wave, the same smile and wave you gave him when he sang an exaggerated Italian accent, "I'm a lover you." And he did. Your husband, he did, oh, so much that he left before you because he couldn't imagine being without you, and you couldn't wait to go, and were pissed that he went first, that you were still here, pissed when you left for Colorado with your daughter, and then for the hospice, and then to meet up with him again. But that's not what I was thinking about. Not that. I was thinking about losing something and about forgetting something, like my keys, like my glasses, and you. You say you'll stay and be my memory, that you'll remind me if I forget who you are, that you'll remind me I love you, you love me, we're a happy family. No, not the Purple Dinosaur. They didn't watch that. They were too hip for that. Sesame Street, that was more their speed. And they, the kids, adults now, gone now. Are the kids coming? But that's not what I was thinking about, not that. I was thinking about losing something, about forgetting something, like my keys, like my glasses, like you, my wife, not the first one, the other one, you. The other one left and erased my memory, changed the past just by saying I never loved you. 12 years and 2 kids later, I never loved you. Are the kids coming? But that's not you. You are my memory now. Remember yesterday? We used to ask that when we first started seeing each other before we made our own memories. You, my wife, who says if I go first, you'll stuff me and put me on the couch, who says you won't let me go alone, who I am so afraid of losing. But that wasn't what I was thinking about. Not that. I must be losing it. I know I'm forgetting something, like my keys, like my glasses. Thanks. Old enough to know better. When I was a not-so-angry young man, I pursued earnest young women with guitars who played their pain and cried for help in crystalline voices that could shatter at a moment's notice, or moaned bluesy, smoky notes that clung to the air with the musky incense of loss and despair. Sadness was an aphrodisiac. Melancholy, a secondary sex characteristic, as desirous as supple lips and ample breasts. Oh, how I yearned to save them all, whether they needed saving or not. I wrote about passion, desire, and loss in the present tense then, clumsily sought eternity in dark places where I couldn't see what I didn't want to see, where I blindly crashed into delicious disappointment, sweet suffering, and oh, how I savored them. Now, as a not-so-bitter old man, desires mostly met, loss not lost, mostly stored as memories so far able to be revisited by the turn of a thought. My passions burn like embers, providing light and warmth rather than heat. I laugh at my misadventures more than miss them, but still remember them fondly, embarrassedly when reminded by the fiery words of youth, as I listen with understanding and a bit of nostalgia while I watch them burn. I still write about love, but now it's about its comfort, its constancy, at peace in its universal embrace. Now I turn my attention to the eternal darkness ahead, to the music that calls from within. Pursue it with eyes opened, open-armed, curious to encounter what awaits me there, what there is next to savor. Save me a space. Save me a space. Not too big, but not too small either. A couple of square feet or so, just enough to hold me. I feel the same size more or less as I always have, but I know in your eyes I grow smaller every day, so eventually I won't take up too much room. But I'd like to know that you know where to look if you want to find me. Light it. Don't leave me in the dark. Light the space. It doesn't have to be a bright light. Just enough. Just enough so I can see and maybe be seen. I think I still reflect as much light as I used to, maybe even shine a little on my own. I can still feel the heat from my own light, but I know in your eyes I grow dim and cold, and there are brighter, warmer places you'd rather be. So a little light couldn't hurt. And amplify my voice, not too loudly, just enough to be heard from that space within the light. I know my voice is fading, becoming to you no more than echo, room tone, tinnitus. But I still have things to say. I guess that's why I talk to myself so much. I still have things to say, and I think what I have to say is worth hearing. But I guess that's up to you. It's all up to you now. When, where, how, and if you leave me just enough to be found and seen and heard. I'll wait. Oh, and if it wouldn't be too much trouble, a chair, a comfortable chair. Catch and release. Caught my reflection in an uptown store window, and all I recognized was the hat. It appears I'm old and fat. The hat looked good. The second major event of the past few months is that I lost my wife, Robin. Turns out the end game isn't turning out quite as I imagined it. The sound. I expect to hear a chorus of wounded spirits peal out a cry so mournful the moon would go pale with grief, or the deafening crash of desires and promises smashing headlong into what was truly possible, or the ripping of 1,000 unmet expectations into unrecognizable remnants. But all I hear is a barely perceptible sigh, the sound of a heart breaking. Too young. We were too young to be the topic of the tales I tell of old couples living endgame, were we not? Younger than springtime, as the song says, but there we were, thrust into free fall after the color, brittle brown before our time. But when it's your time, and it was ours, it seems. You're too young to have an old wife, you said. You're too young for staggering steps and deathly diagnoses, I thought and kept to myself. But when you were in pain and your body was weighed down by a gravity you had no strength to resist, when it showed every indignity, revealed your mortality, it could not be denied. Because that's what age is, isn't it? Mortality revealed. I felt ancient watching your suffering. Did all I could to relieve it, fell into visions of earlier times, the little fabled life passing before the mind's eye, visions of a bleak future without you, a life I do not want to live. I silently scream your name, but somehow you hear it through space and time, heart and soul, and I see your smile. The smile you saved just for me. Then pain and age, past and future, disappear, leaving only you, the one I love, the love I see when I close my eyes, the eternally young, eternally beautiful, eternally now, you. Hospital. You got sick again. We promised no more hospitals, knew we couldn't keep that promise, pretended we could. Ambulance and lobby and elevators and ER and ICU and ping, ping, pings and beep, beep, beeps. We share smirks at sing-song infantilizing nurse voices asking the same questions. Funny how they require answers from you, but have none for us. And now masks and vax cards and strict visiting hours and fear of COVID all added to that of MRSA, sepsis, monkeypox, and bed sores. And will this be the time you don't make it out? You love the attention. You don't deny it. You gift your smile to the EMTs, the ER nurses, the interns, the techs, at least for the first hour or two. This will pinch a little, they say, looking for your evasive veins again and again. You poor, sweet, patient pincushion. I tell them you have a high tolerance for pain, but a low tolerance for discomfort. They all laugh, but only a few get it. Those become your favorites. In our lifetime of hospital visits, I've gone from staying overnight to anxiously watching the clock. COVID put an end to endless visiting hours, and my back and stomach and increasing lack of patience makes it less likely I can go the distance, the spirit being weak, the spirit being willing, etc., etc. You see it, and when you can, you send me home, and I protest, but go gratefully. The phone tethers us. No sleep for either of us, because how could there be? When you're coming home, I don't know when. Cats in the cradle and the silver needles and plastic tubes and air-puffed cuff and cardiac wires. Are you getting better, they asked. How can we tell? Do you feel better, they ask. Compared to what? Check the machines, check the stats, BP, pulse ox, EKG, X-ray, blood work. Are you getting better? Is it up to us to decide? Is it up to the hospitalist, the virologist, the respiratory specialist, the cardiologist, the oncologist, the nurse, the aide, the cleaning staff? Get us out of here, but not before you're better. Are you getting better? And then the half-lie, false hope about being released tomorrow. And then the promised day of release and the one more day, one more bag of drip, drip, drip into your arm. And then another, tomorrow. Wait for it. Wait for it. The doc okay, got to file my report, busy with other patients after lunch. One more test, the paperwork, waiting for the word, waiting for the transport, getting the car, carrying all the stuff we brought in to make you more comfortable, as if comfort was possible. The wheeled escape out the door. And home again, jiggity jig, to another nudge, nudge, wink, wink, familiar promise of no more hospitals. We used to sleep to the sound of the ocean, the gentle whoosh and shoo of waves washing onto the shore and then folding back upon themselves. Hey, Google, play the sounds of the ocean. We would hold each other until it got uncomfortable, then declare, every man for himself, retreat over the hump in the middle of the mattress to our respective sides, grateful that we could share that as an act of love and not of rejection. We would smile when we went to sleep, and while we were sleeping, I wrote a poem about that, and when we woke up, and during the day. We shared so many things that others found strange, and when we discovered them on each other, we would cry, "Landsman!" Laugh at how much we belonged together, shake our heads in disbelief at how long it took to find each other. We were husband and wife from our second date, though we waited a year before we got married. It took longer than that for others to understand, years for some to believe what we had was real. We would finish each other's sentences or start them at the same time. That would amuse some and annoy others, sometimes both. We didn't mind. We just loved each other from where we were, and those who understood came round, and we would feed them. We would often argue over who would go first. Not in life. In life, we would automatically put the other one first. But in death, who would die first and who would be left behind? My parents had the same argument. I have since learned that most loving couples do. We would argue, and you would say that if I went first, you would have me stuffed and put on the couch next to you. I wrote a poem about that. I believed that's how I would end up. We mostly fantasized that death, when we fantasized about death, would come to us at the same time, like the old couple in The Notebook, like the old couple in Titanic. We would just lie down together, and it would come. We would lie down together on the bed and hold each other until the final every man for himself took us. We wanted to believe that to be true. I didn't. I wonder if you did. I never asked. I didn't, and would beg you not to die, and you would scream the lyrics from that song from Dreamgirls, "I'm not going!" We'd laugh, but I took it as a promise. I was selfish. I was delusional. You once said that without your delusions, you require courage. When it came to losing you, I was a coward. We spent so much time in hospitals. Your body treated you mercilessly, and no matter how much I tried, I couldn't make it stop. We spent so much time in hospitals, and each time we left, promised we'd never return. I wrote a poem about that. But we always did. We went back to the hospital this last time, not knowing it would be the last time. I saw your beautiful smile greet me through the ICU door. I saw the eerie smile of gravity-stretched lips on that beautiful face after you died. And now there is no more we. I sleep alone, when I can sleep at all, on my side of the hump. I sleep alone to the sound of violent thunderstorms. Hey, Google, play the sound of thunderstorms. I need the sound of torrential rain to wash away my grief, the sound of booming thunder to mask my cries, to blast the unconscious into dreamless sleep, to help me forget. I sleep alone. I wrote this poem about that. Grief. You have a way of sneaking up on me without warning, a silent hands over the eyes, guess who, that brings back a hint of what was. A taste of salt-touched sweetness, an echo of twilight whispers, a familiar tingle in a hand which once found a home in the small of your back. Phantom sensations of an amputated love I had thought sufficiently mourned and safely entombed. I'd prefer to leave these memories behind, buried, headstone neglected and overgrown, an absolving blessing having put them to final rest, but here they come again. The hounds of hell let loose, tails wagging, wet tongues flapping, begging me to join them in some demented game of fetch. They overtake me, these unleashed memories of you, and carry me back into the black underground where I struggle to dig my way out, to escape the darkness before I give in to its comfortable familiarity and come to rest in melancholy. Road trip. I head down Route 87 at stupid o'clock in the morning. The mist hides the mountains, creating a false horizon. My mind also hazy. I reach out my hand, but yours is not there to greet it. There's just a cold, empty passenger seat driving home the point that I am alone at dawn, traveling through a cold, dark, faux flatland. The sun rises, fights the night and fog, and as the darkness dies and the mist rises, revealing a mountain view we shared on so many road trips, I realize it's you in the mist, in the mountains, in the sun that warms my hand on the steering wheel that holds my hand just the way you used to. Subtle. Leave it to you to die in the fall when bright reds, oranges, and yellows demand attention and compel us to remember their undeniable beauty in the bleak black and white dead of winter. Subtlety never was an option for you, was it? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Romeo. That was very entertaining presentation of your work, very strong stuff. Next up, Gary Siegel. Siegel's poetry go from Staten Island beach scene to Boulder, Colorado, and Allen Ginsberg. He founded the Poetry Brothel of Kingston, which performed locally for 5 years. He continued to read out and read in, sharing his poetry in the Berg. Some of his material tonight comes from his book, The Cradle of Silence. Gary Siegel.
Came across these little 4-line poems. It's a Chinese, 8th century Chinese practice. I have just a couple of them here, playing with it a little bit. 4-line poem 1. What we did together lies behind us now. The fondness for doing so remains. And the sadness for what is gone, a warm blanket. And the second one. Now I am soft-eyed. Now I am moccasin-footed. Then comes the God of quiet. And then the angel of mirth. And this was an impression of, oh no, I forgot it. The bus station in Manhattan on the west side. Port Authority. Port Authority and someone within it. Bus stop. Thousands walked the halls of this place, and barely one had anything to do with another. It was a disjointed oneness. It was a disjointed oneness which moved in every direction and made a collective sound. Where ceilings were low, there was a syncopation with notes bouncing off everything. Ears were not knowing what they were hearing, creating a fuzzy mind in many who crowded through. But when ceilings got high and echoes softened, thousands of ears felt everything change. You could almost see the heads, all of them, turning just a touch. If you moved towards that central staircase where space abounded, the sounds were at ease, rebounding slowly off the still, hard surfaces all around. Within these whirls of sound, there were strings of concentrated tones, and the arcs of those tones had a grace, each note spinning along their path without bumping into any other. Eyes were still bowing to the ears in that space. And there was a sparkling of sound for what? What could create these gentle crescendos and dewdrop splashes in a place like this? Then the humpbacked man comes into view, head down so far that there was no face. And as he poured himself into an unlikely piano, his gnarled body creating lilting notes that moved about in the grand chaos of this now glorious space. It was like an air brake upon the feverish walking of the denizens of a central stair. Their movements slowed as if beauty itself was placing a drag on their strides. And yes, an effervescence like a fountain swirled out of that piano. And the man curled upon it. I messed this up. But the man curled upon it made art like pictures, and he pulled the sound into his very pores and came forward with complete dedication as his invisible sonic eruption spread steadily to every nook and cranny, so that even the dust fibers and the little ants knew that a man with a face could leave his trace upon this place. And in a crooked, tingling reverie, did he gift all those who's ambulated around him. Thank you. This is called I Dream of Eden, because I thought I Dream of Jeannie was corny. But Eden, of course, was Barbara Eden, who played Jeannie, so I had a little fun with the title. The poem is not fun. He had a genie inside him. It wasn't a pretty genie. It wasn't a particularly nice genie. He had wishes that brought it some kind of twisted satisfaction. Everything about him was big. People marveled at it. He himself was surprised at his successes, but after a while he began to cling to them like a man out to sea does a slippery, floating object. After a while his whole world was like this ocean. By then he could not get by without the promontory of his achievements. No one is sure how it got in there, but without a doubt there was something torn. Otherwise it would never have gotten in there. I think he is still torn, but the genie makes him forget that with winning. One day he's going to be facing his death, and then he will remember the genie is not who he is. Those who love him know this already. So far, he does not know this at all. I wish I had a genie. I wish I had wishes. What if I had a genie that made me fall short? What if it thwarted my every effort, making me work hard for every which thing, making me doubt, feeding on that? Yeah, that might be my genie. It surely wasn't his. And I hate his genie. I hate its stubbornness and its egotism and its cruel need to have its way. I wonder as his days wind down if I will get to see him without that beast. I've seen wisps of this before, but a clean sweep, that would be steep. I see him now in a vision where he walks unsteadily upon a path to stone steps, but moving by his own strength. And then a cold wind blows leaves in a swirl over the stones and the steps, and he himself. And what I see, he could be free. Balance. The egg of this world lies perched upon a big rock. Its balance is perfect. The winds are gentle, and everyone you know lives in there, peacefully or not. Sometimes we rock that boat, fighting as we do for the more and the mine. Seems the suit wearers, the double talkers, are becoming ever more psychopathic, ever more graceful as they smile with their teeth in your face. For there is no longer truth in this egg of ours. Just what I say and how I say it. And when an egg falls upon rock and splatters, there is no cry. Then the ants will come, and the birds. The earth will take what's left. After a time, all is gone, and who is there to remember and who to forget? And eggs, after all, are beautiful. And they have thin, fragile shells. Ode to Cement. It's about the Bronx. Okay. Once innocent, dancing on the joys of the moment and breaking into luxuriant smiles, absent any reserve, she was at 4, a fountain of smiles, a mountain of trust, a garden of joy. Yet the world was not kind to her. Soon she carried the imprint of those mean streets she traveled, streets filled with uncaring stares and unsheathed hate. People survive these beginnings many times with damage, leaving some incapable of expressing love and others that might break open into caring moments, shoving aside their feigned invulnerability, but living overall with guardedness and tight fists. Many remain this way even when they have ceased to tread such places any longer. See, they come from a land of concrete, not earth, straight lines, not curves, food from cans, never trees. And these altered ones are left to venture through their years dripping pain, loss, and invisible blood. They don't live shorter, just muffled, erupting occasionally into all kinds of brightness before quickly tucking it away. Few have the luxury of introspection, and even if they're lucky and there's enough food and kindness in their lives, a part of them is shuttered away, knowing survival and lauding hardness. It started with innocence. Some will mourn for what could have been, but for now I tell you this. Don't fall on that sidewalk. It's hard, it tears skin, and it's got filthy broken glass all over it. This one was a winter ago when it was really cold one morning and these strange little frozen flakes were coming down. And I just had some ideas about it. It's called Hades breath. Early morning cold, quite cold. It's snowing, if you can call it that. These particles of white are so small that it seems more like a light dispersing dust than the floating, drifting, spinning snowflakes I'm used to. The cold, the diffracted light, the sounds of frigid winds, they take me away. I'm still here, but some part of me is in a far-off place. And the sounds, this icy form of snow that moves the air and meets the ground, sounds like tiny fragments of tinkling glass, subtle and muted, and somehow it is as if they were in my ear, whispering, tinkling to me alone, and taking me away. But to what? I'll tell you what. Hades breath, that's what this is. The wind is not of Persephone, not of that which brings life up from the earth itself, but rather that of Hades, sucking down, drawing down that which remains until it's all his, all of it, leaving behind only what is dry and brittle. If there's any vitality here, it's not that of the rich earth exuding life. No, it is the opposite end of that. The place where there is so little of it that you feel your own vitality more than anything by contrast. And it is dazzling in its own understated way. And Hades smiles a laugh from far below. And I can't hear him, and I do not wish to visit him, and a shiver passes through my bones, and a chill unwelcome blows through my soul. Winter is here. It is cold, and it cries with frozen tears. Thank you. This one was a late night a couple months ago, and everything was so quiet and so calm and so spacious that I almost felt like I was floating in space. And then I began to imagine from there. It's called The Void and the Quiet. Here I am, spinning through the mother of space. And I will ask you this. Is it still an emergency if nothing can be done? Is it an emergency? My tether is broken and I float about, spinning slowly through the cold, dark emptiness, a delicious, frightening emptiness, all backlit by the sullen brightness of this familiar star. Its sheer size puts it in another phylum of being from me. That size means I will be pulled to it. It will not be pulled to me. But well before I am vaporized out in the light and the heat and the radiation I'm approaching, I will run out of air. But now there's still a sliver of time. It is all the time I have, and I wonder as I cherish it, how dying in this way differs from death in a car accident or a mass shooting or a heart attack. One doesn't tend to think about such things or even to imagine them if they are not in such a situation. And now, with just a short time left, I am about to enter a proximate infinity. And so, I turn and tumble silently, gracefully, beautifully, with finality. I can feel the pull of this sun as it embraces me, and I embrace it as well. And who is to say that these next 2 hours of oxygen are not a separate chapter of a life, and one that can still be filled? As the brightness becomes encompassing, last thoughts occur to me, and everyone I love dances before my eyes. I cannot see the stars anymore, just the light of this glorious sun who I am drawn now to meet, endings enfolding me. And it is warm, so warm, in my little metal suit tonight. timekeeper here. Okay. Once, a couple years ago, I was down in the bottom of Grand Central, and I had to go to the men's room, and it was this little cavernous, very crowded, kind of weird place. And in the midst of my visit there, someone started screaming out and proclaiming things, and I said to myself, the mad poet is here. So here's the poem. It's called Porcelain Prophet. In the land of uric acid and averted eyes, there are only men. Men squirming and fidgeting. Men dripping and jiggling. Men seeking relief at the stand-up porcelain throne. 55 numbered the men in silent contemplation, standing each astride the next, desperately feigning isolation. A simple task here requiring such a grim concentration. And then a voice rang out in sudden oratory, a throat ringing out with the telling of his own tortured story, of the urinal he occupied laden with some other stranger's glory. His lamentations continued. Do not animals bury scat? Why then, came the refrain, can a man be just like that? These men, he deduced, beneath the very beast still sat. While the men in silent formation stood before their thrones with a heavy wayward glance, they did their job and faithfully they zippered up their pants. And did they tuck within that pouch a knowledge that would grow? You'll have to ask our porcelain god, Bird, for only he would know. Okay, a couple more. This one I have no explanation for. I can't account for it. It has something to do with how David Carradine died. Maybe some of you know, and maybe some of you don't, but you're going to know soon. It's called Jizz, Rattles, and Blows. Okay. I want to die like David Carradine. One hand on my cock, the other one working that rope, squeezing, twisting, straining, just can't get enough. Every time pushing it just a little bit further. I want to fuck a bull elephant from behind, shaking it, banging it till the tusks rattle together. I like the sound. I want to leave a corpse as public as Mussolini, scorned, desecrated, and left out in hot weather. I want to be remembered. I want to breathe like bacteria, breathe like nothing can stop me, numbers growing and pulsing with immortality. I want to be a kite in a monster storm, sky opening up, sending crazy torrents of water, everybody below scurrying, cursing, crying, and the shit just won't stop, and nothing's dry and everything's ruined, and a lightning flash throws it all in a sharp relief, starker than life itself. Winds howling, drains guzzling, some kind of crazy fury released on everything, and I'm in the middle of it all and tossed and whipping around so much that Benjamin Franklin would be jealous. And I just lost my place. There it is. And tell me, David Carradine, what about those last moments? Did something go wrong? Did something break? Or did you just push it just a little too far that time? This one also has something to do with the Bronx. It's called Happy Home. It was a happy home. I remember my stepfather scratching romantic things in the frost on the window to the delight of my mom. Family breakfast, kitchen table, all was good, all was calm. But the domestic bliss had some cracks in it in this house because the cucarachas were in the house. Crawling, swarming, emerging from places unseen. They were ugly, discomforting. They were intrusion. And gravity had no business with them. They marched up the wall, across the ceiling. They marched with a rhythm, stepped with a gait, and they'd run if you wanted to take them out. They knew. When They were on the ceiling. Clever and fed up Bronxites would take out the broom, handle long enough to deliver the required pounds per square, and they delivered too with a loud crunch. Quirk of nature, act of God, I don't know what. No matter where I stood, no matter what angle I used, the squash roach landed always in my face. I smile when I think of all this, the incursion of the six-leggeds, the ugliness, the shame, and that crunch, which I still remember. The caverns of memory now gloat with the passage of roaches remote, knowing safety and distance is assured. And with that distance comes nostalgia, comes levity, even fondness. Could it be love? Okay, and last one, called balance. An old world male god has 2,000 heads, and he's in your face. It's his nature and you're screwed. Damn guy is thinking too much and trying to dominate the conversation, among other things. The female god, she has 2,000 breasts. Some might be really delighted, others fear carpal tunnel. But no matter, she quickly assumes the form of a giant egg. She knows what she's doing. The egg exudes fertility, groundedness, interconnection. Given the choice, I take the goddess over easy. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're wrapping it up pretty soon here, so I want to thank Mike Jakovic, Tom Romeo, and Gary Siegel for their presentations of their work. All of them were excellent, and I appreciate every word you guys put out there today. It was fantastic. I'm going to have to bring my partner up here to make some announcements, because he's the guy that's always on top of things, and I'm just like, again, behind the curtain. But here's Mike Jakovic with some announcements for you.
Yes, the man behind the curtain. Just really quick, we will be here on March 9th, and our featured readers will be Timothy Brennan, Philip Levine, and Greg Carell. And our upcoming February 16th, our third Thursday Zoom only, is with NYU's Tim Tomlinson. So if you can join us either here or on Zoom, please do. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.